Hi, welcome to LMG Daily. My name is Lady, means go forth. Life means go forth on the daily. In this segment, I am going to finish up where I left off on part 2 of the Black quote unquote history segment. Now, when I left off, just to recap some things, 1850 is when voting started, when it was originated, and I had asked you all to look up church and state and the meaning of it, and also we was getting into the Great Land Theft, and how South Africa was like the first experiment of stealing land. So that being said, whoever controlled the land, well, the trade, they controlled the land basically, and it happened so fast, like a blink of an eye, when these laws was being enacted, and the indigenous people didn't realize what was happening and what was about to happen until it already happened. When the settlers came and they was befriending the indigenous people, and they was like, well, they started a bartering system, and they figured like, okay, if we can put forth these laws and start taxing them, and we start making a currency, and then they become unable to pay us, they will be in debt to us. Therefore, if they sign their land up, they in debt to us, they don't pay, we can take their land. But the people, a lot of them were uneducated, so they really didn't know. They just thought that these people were befriending them and actually trying to show them a different way, a better way, and it wasn't. So, digging on into more of this, at this time this was going on, I also asked you to look at the word immigrate. EMIGRATE, immigrate, and the word immigrant, INMIGRAT. Okay. Now, the word immigrate means to leave a country. The word immigrant means to come to a country. So the settlers had immigrate with an E, graded, from Europe, and they became immigrants when they came to what is now known as the United States of America, or the United States. So, the people that wasn't from the land, the immigrants, they come to have control over the land and the body. So you have to understand that at this time when they was forming these policies, they had formed up a bank, and that bank that formed the rules and regulations and everything, majority of the ideas of the rules and the regulations came from the British colony, henceforth the word colonizer. um a bank is defined as a retail or commercial financial institution that is licensed by the government or corporation to receive and loan money. Now, upon my research, I found that the bank derives from the Italian word banca and the French word banque or banque. In definition, it's the table in the bank is the money lender exchange table. Now you have the money box, stock. A subscribed capital of corporation stock was described for the movable property of a farm. Kept in stock means in possession of or trader. In possession of a trader, or to be imprisoned, prisoners of war. Now, paper currency was hard to come by in the early years, so due to that, the bartering system, like I was telling you, it was famous, and a lot of sharecroppers, they were used to it, so that's what they did. Now, when they had this bartering system and the credit system year round, the debt would be paid with the sale of the crop. Now, when they had hard times, you had to improvise, come up with things, and so that being said, with the government, quote unquote, at that time, want to control, they started to tax from these freedmen banks, and at the time, I think there was about over 140 different ones. They had millions of acres, and they formed societies where they will oversee these land trades, and that was happening. So then more British people came, settled, and the way that the sharecroppers had acquired the land was different than the way the new British colony was acquiring land. One of the ways that they acquire land, gifting land and property. Now, when you deed, it's a crop lien system. The landowner would sign over the deed, and when taxes, transport costs, storage fees, etc. would come up, the sharecroppers couldn't afford to pay it, and they lost their land to the banks, like monopoly. Okay, the Preemption Act of 1849. Some other farmers were able to purchase their sharecrop land for free. It's crazy, but they did this. They was giving out land left and right to their own, our ancestors' land. They didn't know any better, and they took advantage of that, the knowledge and the lack thereof. They took advantage of that, and when they took advantage of that, and it's I have to stop right there because that's going on today. All the way back. Now, I'm talking about the 1800s right now. These are the 2000s. So, over 2 centuries later, they're still doing the same practices in order to acquire land. And, just take it from people and acquire more land. So, that being said, the Prudential Act of 1849, some of the farmers were able to purchase, sharecrop land, and they were called free tenant farmers. The people that were able to just walk up and say, "Hey, you call me, I'm here." And then those other individuals will be like, "Well, okay, cool. You sign this paper. This is where you're going to move. You're going to farm this land, and we're going to profit together." That's how that buddy system worked. So, that being said, now Oliver Hudson Kelly was put on like this little investigate status, like, I want you to go out there and I want you to survey this land, survey that land, survey this property, and see what actually is going on to where we can get this and we can profit off of this, like flipping. And so, that being said, he did that. And lo and behold, a secret society was formed for agriculture. There were politicians, bank owners, executives got together and they formed the National Grange of the Order of Patrons of Husbandry in 1867. Now, when you look at the word bond, it's like husbandman or householder. Grange, Greenback Humanity Party. They basically removed the middleman out of the farmers group by doing that. By forming a society, they basically moved the middleman out of the picture. So, that being said, they came up with farm credit. Let me tell you how these guys, they got together and formed this grand scheme of things. Now, from this credit act, Woodrow Wilson then created federal land banks. And it aided rural farmers. Now, when they did this, let me tell y'all how this intertwines, because when I was doing my research and I was paying attention to the courses at hand, the lecture at hand that was happening, I just couldn't believe it. But I can. It's like right there. But my poor ancestors. Um, when they aided these rural farmers, they organized federal banks. They put them in position. Now, if you will look at these federal banks, they notated them as being 12 federal banks. But in all actuality, there are 13 federal banks. Now, just think about it. When I looked at those banks and I looked at the wording, and it said that there are 12 federal banks. And I was looking at the illustration and I was like, no, that's not 12. That's more than 12. I was like, that's 13 banks. And we wasn't supposed to actually group in the 13th bank, which the 13th bank is the Federal Reserve. So I was like, what? Wait a minute. So, once you pay attention to the greenbacks, the dollars, and you look at the illustrations, the pictures that's on the dollar, you start to put one and one together, it makes two. That being said, when you look at these 13 banks and you think about the 13 colonies, you can't help but put one and one together, So that being said, they wasn't using their own money. In these Federal Reserve banks, they wasn't using their own money. They weren't using their own money. Guess who money they were using? Still today, they're not using their own money. Guess whose money they're using? It's a shame. It's just a shame. But to keep moving forward, to keep pressing forward, you got to know the truth. Deal with it accordingly. That's what you got to do. Now, that being said, the Homestead Act of 1862, I need you to listen. Whoever tuning in, I need you to listen to this. I was shocked when this came about. All right. There are early land policies sought to generate revenue, reward military service, and promote settlement and development. Oh, I failed to mention, we weren't included in this. We weren't. Only. Now, to continue on, in this Homestead Act of 1862, I'm going to tell you what happened. The sale of public lands happened without us. Military bounties, we didn't have a right to. Grants to states that we didn't have a right for. Private land grants that we didn't have a right to. Road, canal, and railroad grants that we did not have a right to. Donation and preemption laws. Nope. We didn't have a right to that either. Now, there was land given by previous sovereigners to their own, but it was few and far in between because of the newcomers that were able to slither and slide their way into the system and make their own system. See, we had a system of bartering. It was like, no, forget that bartering. Can't really profit off bartering. We want something that we can profit off of. We already see you. Oh yeah. They looked at us as prophets. The other side of prophets. Not with the PHET. PROFIT. That's how they saw us. Now, I have to go back to when you look and you see the word Satan, and you see that he comes to steal, kill, and destroy. That basically what happened. That's basically what happened to my ancestors. The settlers, colonizers came, stole land, they killed them, they destroyed families, homes, property, livestock, crops, in order to instill fear in the indigenous people. After passage of the Homestead Act in 1862, many of the proven public land laws continued to operate. Congress had also enacted additional land proposal laws. The consequence was an incurious land system. With policies often in conflict with each other, like today. There are a lot of double standards in the laws today. A lot of double standards. So, some of the other laws that were included with this land disposal law, you have the mineral disposal law, then you have the Timber Cultural Act, then you have the Desert Land Act, the Timber and Stone Act, and conservation policies. Now, historian Paul Wallace Gates called it an incongruent some of the laws in conflict with another law disposing of gold, silver, coal, as well as oil. Way back then, same thing right now. Today, it's going on. Now, when I found out also that there were so many ways, and growing up, I always wondered. I was like, how is it so easy for such and such young parents to, and such got that brand new. And I'd be like, wow, you got all that for Christmas? When I was younger, not knowing any better. But when you look at farm banks alone, just farm banks alone, there are 9 different farm banks. Agriculture Credit Association, ACA. Bank for Cooperatives, BC. Farm Credit Bank, FCB. That's 3. FCS Financial Assistance Corporation. Then you have the Federal Intermediate Credit Bank. Then you have the Federal Land Bank. Then you have the Federal Land Bank Association. Then you have the Federal Land Credit Association, FLCA. Then you have the Production Credit Association. I'm going to go over those again. Agricultural Credit Association, ACA. Bank for Cooperatives, BC. Farm Credit Bank, FCB. FCS Financial Assistance Corporation, Federal Intermediate Credit Bank, FICB. Federal Land Bank, FLB. Federal Land Bank Association, FLBA. Federal Land Credit Association, FLCA. Production Credit Association, PCA. I'm going to let that sink in. Those are just for farms. Just for farms. Not necessarily saying your land, but just if you're farming anything, tobacco, cotton, anything, sugar, rice, cows, horses, pigs, goats. Any one of these 9s is a whole separate loan that you can get. But it was mainly for not when started this whole process here on this land. And I'm going to tell you how I know this. Because when I was doing my research about this, it was crazy when I saw this. I almost couldn't keep my composure because I was like, what? Wait a minute, what? So, what I was whatting about is the fact that I want to make sure before I quote this. Yeah, I'm sure. Here it is, right here. The first settlers were recorded to be here the early 1600s. That's when the first settlers were recorded to have come to America. 1607, they settled in Virginia. My people, the earliest known recording, 1400s. That's 200 years ahead of any white person being on this land. Hear me clearly when I say this. 1400s, the indigenous, aboriginal were here already. White people didn't come to 1600. Wow. Wow. I have to end this segment, but before I end it, I want you guys to know what the real definition of black is. We wouldn't even known to be black people until the late 1800s. They created that word, black. The white people, the colonizers that came here to colonize my ancestors, were white people, Anglo-Saxons, and they came up with the word black. You know what the word black means? I'm going to give you a few definitions that I looked up. And these sources come from the Webster, Grammarly.com, first off, black means void. Void of any color. The word that they use for people who have the same skin complexion as I do, which I'm brown. If you want to do a color, I'm brown. If you want to do a race, I'm indigenous. Another definition of black from these sources: refuse to handle, undertake, work, or have dealings with of any human group having dark skin. I have brown skin. See? Next definition. When light is absent. Another definition. Black represents evil, darkness, night, and despair. It's the color used to convey certain authority, certainty, and authority. And when of used in opposite of white, when in use with the opposite of white, the definition changes to, and I quote, a symbol of eternal struggle between day and night, good and evil, right and wrong. So do you really want to be considered black? I'm asking. I'm not. And from this day forward, I shall never check anything else that considers me as a black person. Because I'm not. My color is brown. My race is indigenous. How is it that we allow people to tell us who we are without knowing for ourselves who we really are? This has been part 3 of the black, quote unquote, history segment of LMG Daily. Life means go forth on the daily. And remember to know the truth. It'll set you free. Knowledge is power, because you feel empowered with knowledge. Someone told me, or I read somewhere, that knowledge is not power without putting it in motion, putting your knowledge to use. So here I am today, putting my knowledge to use. And I'm sharing this knowledge with the over 2-3 million supposedly black people in the United States of America. So, you guys heard the definition of black, quote unquote. Are you really that? This is why you have so many people saying, find out where you come from, trace your roots, find out for sure if you're Aboriginal, Indigenous, American Indian. Find out for sure, are you an African American? Because you guys, as long as you keep boasting that you're black, that the black lives are supposed to matter, when the government designed the word black, is it really going to matter? Are we really going to matter until we really figure out and find out who we really are? Peace.